Unit 19. Gateway 1 and 2. There's an obvious problem with the history of dress in all of its displays, and that is, although textiles survive from early periods and cultures of recorded history, actual garments do not provide an uninterrupted flow of evidence across the same long time span. Therefore, to give the study of dress equal significance to other areas such as architecture, painting, prints, drawings, and sculpture, it was inevitable that these other areas would provide much of the source material. The history of surviving dress really only starts in the 17th century, and like all artifacts, described as fine or decorative art is a highly visual subject. However, unlike most of the categories of collection and study that make up those areas, it is fluid rather than static. Garments should be seen in movement on a human body, not frozen on a display figure. This is one of the many difficulties when curating collections of costume, and also why some modern writers find costume collections physically and intellectually lifeless. Fortunately, in the period after 1660, when more items of dress survive to enrich our understanding of the history of the subject, there are also many painted, printed, photographed, and filmed sources of evidence of people in clothing caught in movement. Often a variety of different types of illustrative examples will provide evidence about how a garment was worn within the period in which it was made. Without the information contained in art in all of its forms, from drawing to sculpture, it is likely that displays of historic dress would be awkward imitations of the intentions of their original makers and owners. Exercises 1 and 2. Women's dresses from the 18th century offered a great opportunity for repurposing, as they were frequently fashioned from long, uncut lengths of fabric. Textiles were significantly more costly than the labor it took to alter them, and as a result, most garments were modified numerous times to keep up with changes in fashion. Even the wealthy saved fabrics, remodeled clothes, and sold unwanted items in the second-hand market, observes fashion scholar Linda Welters. Sustainability was a way of life. Indeed, although change is inherent to fashion, the remodeling of the existing clothing rather than buying new was a widespread practice. It is rare, in fact, to find an 18th century dress that does not show some sign of alteration. The cost of having a gown made or remade was only about half the cost of the textile itself and could be significantly less depending on the type of fabric. In addition to updated dress silhouettes, accessories and trimmings played an important role in refreshing old clothing styles. For example, the addition of a row of lace on an upper part of a gown was an economical alternative to the full replacement of the gown. Many 18th century dresses, particularly those from the first half of the century, were constructed with relatively crude stitches, indicating that the effortless deconstruction of the original gown was a consideration. Because fabrics retained value even when they were worn in fashion, hand-woven silks, cherished for their quality and beauty, were sometimes passed down through generations. Exercises 3 and 4. The rise of internet-based technologies means that news is produced, distributed, and consumed faster than ever before. However, the reliability of this news is questionable. Not all organizations or individuals putting out information spend time checking the details or putting the facts into a wider context. People are confronted with overwhelming amounts of information not just on a daily basis, but via minute-by-minute updates transmitted to audiences around the globe. More than ever before, people are involved in organizing and managing the amount and type of news they receive. The Internet means that irrespective of where we are in the world or what time of the day it is, news can be accessed from broadcasters located anywhere on the planet. As new media, such as mobile phones, computers, and other portable devices have become more affordable, compact, and embedded in everyday life, they have come to replace television and newspapers. For younger people, advances in technology form part of the world they were born into. But the ease of use and affordability of new media means that they are an integral feature of the lives of people of all ages. For U.S. sociologist Matthew Hindman, technological advances have made news more dramatic, meaning that now people of all ages and from all social backgrounds can access it. Others fear that new media poses a threat. Information on the Internet is often unregulated, so while it is more accessible than ever before, its reliability is difficult to discern. Exercises 5 and 6. Since the 1970s, a combination of forces has made the problem of overwork more widespread. The service sectors in Western economies have grown dramatically, while employment in manufacturing has declined. The shrinking of labor unions and workplace protections has let employers push for longer hours, while global competition, decreased job security, and flat wages have forced workers to work harder to stay in place. Corporations now shed staff in the course of restructuring and process reengineering, forcing surviving workers to carry heavier workloads. The 2008 recession and recovery has solidified a pattern in which companies seek to grow by increasing demands on existing workers rather than hiring new ones. A few industries have turned into fast-moving winner-take-all contests. Small numbers of people stand to make immense fortunes when their tech company goes public, their hedge fund investment pays off, or their song goes viral. And since no one knows how long they have until fashions change, technology evolves, or the bubble bursts, it makes sense to go all in right now. As a result, many of us are actually working longer hours. Working hours generally decline with increased productivity, but in the 1970s, increased productivity stopped yielding shorter working hours despite the expectations of generations of economists. Working hours started to rise in the United States in the 1980s, especially among salaried workers and professionals like doctors, lawyers, bankers, and academics. In contrast, working hours and full-time jobs and salaries in less skilled, hourly professions began to fall. Since then, this split has spread to other parts of the world. Today, well-off, well-educated people in Western Europe, Australia, and South Korea are also more likely to be overworked, while more poor people struggle to find stable jobs and face chronic underemployment. Exercises 7 and 8. Political psychologist Philip Tetlock examined the speeches made by policymakers involved in international conflicts. He noted that in making important decisions, national leaders often fall back on overly simplified images of the world. During the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, for example, two very simple images of the conflict were dominant. One of these was the deterrence view that any sign of weakness would be taken advantage of by the opponent and that leaders needed to show their willingness to use military force. From a deterrence perspective, some demonstration of aggressiveness is often necessary as a preventive measure to stop the other side from aggressing against one's group. People who hold a deterrence view that demonstrations of weakness would be taken advantage of are less likely to support nuclear disarmament. The other prominent view was a conflict spiral view, which presumed that every escalation of international threat leads the opponent to feel more threatened and that leaders need to demonstrate peaceful intentions in order to reduce the opponent's own defensive hostilities. Tetlock noted that each of these cognitive frames was correct in some circumstances and incorrect in others. Against an opponent such as Hitler, a deterrence viewpoint might have been more effective than a view that led to consolation. On the other hand, international policy experts estimate that the U.S. invasion of Iraq, argued by President G.W. Bush to be the centerpiece of the war on terror, seems to have spurred increases in the membership of al-Qaeda, the group responsible for the terrorist attack of September 11, 2001.